Greetings and welcome. This time I will be doing a Bible study on Ezekiel. Yeah, there's a lot to say about him. So last time we did Gehazi, now we're going to do Ezekiel. This will also probably take a few videos. I'm not going to be bouncing around though. Pretty much everything I have to read will be from Ezekiel chapter 3. So the title of this study is Ezekiel, the forehead of adamant. So adamant. Um, so yeah, I'll show you in the verses, but it refers to God tells Ezekiel that your head has to be as hard as an adamant. So I'll talk more about that in a bit, but basically the point of this sermon, just the next few videos, is that you need to be bold and courageous. That's basically the short of it. I'll go more in detail, obviously, but Ezekiel was a good role model and very counterculture, not politically correct. That's what I'm going to say. A lot of stuff here that kind of goes against, what people are used to these days. What people think being a Christian means these days is usually wrong. Most people have no idea what it means to be a Christian these days in this country. America, if you're somewhere else, it might be different. You might have better Christians in your country, especially those countries where Christians are persecuted. It's sad to say those are the countries where the Christians tend to be a little more, generally have a little more backbone. Here in America, the Christians are pretty weak, I would say, by historical standards. I mean, if you read Fox's Book of Martyrs or just what our ancestors, our Christian brethren from the hundreds of years ago went through, or thousands, within the last 2,000 years, what Christians have gone through, and you compare that to Christianity today, it's like night and day. You can't even compare it. And there's lots of reasons for why this happened. You can go into long detail about why we ended up in the situation that we're in. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to be talking about is Ezekiel, the forehead of adamant. Ezekiel was a man that caused conflict and tension wherever he went, and it's not the type of Christian life you think it's different. It's different. It's probably not the Christian life you're used to. You're gonna go against the standards of the world. Being a Christian does not mean fitting in with everybody. It means you are going to be different. So first, my first point, I have a couple points. Actually, my first point is that he was a nuisance to society. That's my first point. That's probably what this video is mostly going to be about. My first point, that he was a nuisance to society. My second point is that he never trembles. My third point is that he is nothing without God. And my fourth point, nothing without God. I guess I can't count. I don't know, wait. Yep, just 3 points. Yeah, those are my 3 points. So my third point is that he's nothing without God. So I'm going to read out of Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 4. So Ezekiel 3:4, right here. So Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 4, here it says, "And he said unto me, Son of man, go, get thee unto the house of Israel, and speak with my words unto them. For thou art not sent to a people of a strange speech and of a hard language, but to the house of Israel. Not to many people of a strange speech and of a hard language, whose words thou canst know." Not to many people of a strange speech and of a hard language, whose words thou canst not understand. Surely had I sent thee to them, they would have hearkened unto thee. And there's plenty more verses to read there, but we're just going to leave it at just that for now. So first he's saying, okay, God, this is God talking to Ezekiel. He's like, okay, Ezekiel, I'm going to send you to the house of Israel, your people. You're going to preach to your people, which should be easy, right? We speak the same language, in theory. The words we speak are the same. The way we think could be very, very different, though. Just because we speak the same language does not mean we're going to be the same. So here he said, he sent unto the house of Israel. And then it's like, so it should be pretty easy, right? You're not sent to some other nation of a strange speech. You're not a missionary. You don't have to go to another country, learn a new language, and preach to this people there, of a different culture. So you have to learn their culture, you have to learn their language, you have to get used to their traditions, and to not offend them. And that's going to take time and effort, and you might have to preach, explain to them things in the Bible that they're not used to, hearing. If you're a missionary today, there's a certain barrier. There's a learning curve to being a missionary and doing work overseas. Whereas here in your own country, in America, you could preach to anyone. We speak the same language, we speak the same culture. Anyone you talk to, a lot of people have probably heard of the Bible if they haven't read it, or know somebody that goes to church, or probably has a relative that goes to church. And you won't have to start from the beginning. You won't have to tell them who Adam and Eve are and God. And you could start telling them about Jesus right away, because people were brought up with that stuff, generally. And it's not as hard, right? It should be easier to preach to people in this country, in theory. So, so this is what God's saying here. It's like, I'm sending you to your own people, to Israel. And then here, which sounds like it in theory should be easier than, talking to some foreign people. Then verse 6, it says, surely had I sent thee to them, they would have hearkened unto thee. This is kind of sad. So God's saying, like, yeah, if I sent you to some other country where they'd never heard of me, and I told you to preach to them, told you to preach to the Assyrians or the Babylonians, you would have better results with them than you would have with the house of Israel, with your own people. Your own people don't want to listen to you, which should, your own people that have been brought up with this stuff, that know all of this stuff, that already know who I am, who know the God, I'm their God, I'm the God of Israel. They're not going to listen to you. Your own people who should know the Old Testament, the Torah, the Tanakh, that Tanakh's the term for the entire Old Testament. Yeah, right. So, and they should know it. That they should know all of that. They know who I am. You should be able to preach to them. You should be able to. They should listen. In theory, see, all of this stuff is in theory. In theory, it should be easier to preach to your own people, but that's not how it works. Your own people sometimes don't want to listen to you. Sometimes the hardest people to preach to are your own relatives, because they don't want to listen to you. Your own relatives might be the least willing to listen to you, because they're like, who are you? It's like, you're just one of us. Like what do you know? Jesus, some of the Jesus's brethren, obviously Jesus is the Son of God, but Jesus had, siblings. If you want to call, it's not really siblings. They're not all biological siblings, but Mary and Joseph had, other children. She was not a perpetual virgin. That's some Catholic myth. And so Mary had, children with Joseph. They were an actual married couple. Jesus, that was, a special case. Came from God. So Jesus grew up with these siblings, actually, and it says in the Bible, like, they didn't want to listen to him. They were like, who are you? You're just one of us. No, he's not one of you. He is the Son of God. He is God. He is the Messiah. He's not just one of you. He's not just one of us. So so some of them weren't even taking him seriously, because they're like, who are you? It's like, what do you mean? It's like what? You're some great prophet now? It's like, who do you think you are? And this is like, to a smaller extent, this is kind of what you are up against if you do try to preach to or witness to some of your relatives, especially if you're someone who grew up like in a non-Christian background, and then all of a sudden you just become a Christian, overnight, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, this guy used to go out drinking with us. Or like some of your old friends, like, oh wow, this guy used to go drinking and smoking with us, and now he won't. Like what's wrong with him? And some of these people, that they don't really understand what happened, and so they don't take you seriously. And God might have to use other people to get to them, because you can't reach them, and it's not your fault. There's just literally nothing you can do to reach these people, because they don't want to listen. They're not going to take you seriously. because of you, just you. They do not accept you the way you are, and the message just isn't going to get across. And so you have to go to those that are going to listen. So, but God here is sending Ezekiel to his own people, to the house of Israel, and he's saying, yeah, preach to them. But they're not going to listen. I mean, I'll tell you later, the more stuff he says, but God tells, God's going to tell Ezekiel, like, yeah, go preach to them, but they're not going to listen. So it's kind of sad. It's like, you already know the end result. You already know it's a failure, but you still have to do it. So Ezekiel already knows it's going to be a failure. But God still tells him to do it, despite knowing the outcome. It's like, what's the point? If you already know it's not going to work. It's like, no, this is just to show that I did it. I told you. I warned you. You're not going to listen, but I did warn you. It's written down. I told you. I warned you. I know you're not going to listen, but I just want to notify you. And just so that we're clear on the fact that I did warn you about what is going to happen to this country. And, so, and, maybe someone listened, if even one person listens, it was worth it, and even if no one hears, it's still for the glory of God. If God told you to do it, then you just have to do it. And, but yeah, it's kind of hard. It's very depressing, like knowing that people aren't going to listen and to still do it. You want to see results. We want to see results when we do stuff for God, or just in life in general. Anytime you work on some kind of skill, or do some kind of job, you want to see results. If you're not seeing results, then you start asking yourself, what was the point of this? What was the point of all this work? Like, why was I doing all of this stuff? And you just start asking questions like, why, Lord, why did you make me do this? It's like, what's the point? I could have been doing something else, a little more profitable, something more useful. So this is going to be the situation Ezekiel's in, and this is where the whole forehead of Adam comes in, and that's where these verses will show up later. So it's like, it's basically what I was saying. God's words are going to annoy people, and it's just kind of sad because it literally says, like, yeah, other people are going to listen. The Israelites won't, but so yeah, kind of like I said with the missionaries, it's like the Americans won't listen. Like, they've already heard the gospel. They're bored of the gospel. Americans have heard it so many times. Like, I mean, you still have to witness sometimes to people, but chances are they've heard it so many times, and it's like there's nothing you can say to make them change their mind. They are just so adamant, and this country has done a really good job of just brainwashing children through the education system, Darwinism, all of this stuff, all this nonsense, all of this political correctness stuff, all this wokeness. That's the new variant of all this deception, wokeness, and it just how to be in, how to fit in with everybody, all of that stuff, and it's just a cancer, and it's pretty much destroyed Christianity completely in this country. But when missionaries go out, overseas, yeah, they have some challenges, but sometimes they meet people that are willing to hear the gospel. People living in poverty, and just in conditions where they can see God's handiwork in their lives. Whereas in America, you just don't really see that. You can see stuff happening overseas that you wouldn't see here. And that's why, some of these missionaries, they go overseas and, they see results among other people, not here, but over there. And, and you have to spread the gospel over the world. And, churches should be supporting missionaries. I mean, that is a big part of, running a church here in America. It's trying to support missionaries. So, have your, focus on the work here, but also overseas, send people abroad. So, so anyway, Ezekiel is witnessing to all these people. And yeah, and so they're just not going to get it. Like, the Jews are just not going to get it. So in verse 7 it says, but the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me. So they will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me. For all the house of Israel are impudent and hard-hearted. So it's like, they're not going to listen to you because they're not going to listen to me, which makes sense. Like, so if you're witnessing to someone and trying to preach to them and tell them the gospel, they don't want to listen to you. it's not you, okay? Like, you shouldn't really take it personally. Like, you really shouldn't take it personally, because it's not you. You are not the problem. The problem is God. They don't like God. They hate God. They have a problem with God. God is the problem. You're not the problem. You're just a messenger. You're just a messenger. So you really shouldn't take it personally. Like I've been street preaching before. We would do that in my old church. Hold up signs. Tell people Bible verses while the cars are parked, and they would. Like once in a while I'd hear something like they would say stuff to try to annoy you and try to make you angry. And it's just stupid stuff. They would say stuff like, "Hail Satan" or something, and they think they're funny. They think they're cool and that they're annoying you, and they're just being immature. They're just immature kids usually trying doing this. Like some teenagers or college students who think they're cool, doing this kind of stuff. They're just stupid. So they think they're trying to annoy you or get at you with that kind of stuff. It's like you should never take that kind of stuff personally, because it's not you. It's not you. You are speaking, like God is speaking through you. You're just telling them what God told you to say. The Bible is your authority. Their problem is the Bible. Their problem is God. You are just a messenger. You're an ambassador of peace. You're trying to reconcile them to God. You're an ambassador. You're trying to bring peace. You're a counselor. Yeah, I mean, obviously Jesus Christ is the mediator between God and men. But you're basically just a spokesperson. You're telling them what Jesus Christ did for them. You're telling them what the Bible says, what God said. So yeah, just don't take it personally if you ever have bad results with this stuff. So yeah, like in this country, just people are just so immune to the gospel. Like they've just heard it so many times. They're like numb to it. It's really sad. So anyway, what I was getting at is like Ezekiel's like this person of like counterculture, and he's gonna do stuff that annoys other people. So like right here, I'd like just one more thing I wanted to mention here before I move on. It's that like I would have like Bible verses on my car, and those would preach, because like you can't always go around passing tracts. You can't always talk to people. Sometimes you don't like really feel like talking to people, unfortunately. Like they just everyone has a different personality. I'm an introvert. I'm not really big on like I'm not the best at talking to people. So I go, you have to go about it different ways. You find other ways to reach people, like these videos. That's I think a good way to reach people. So I would have these Bible verses on my car, and they're car stickers, and they basically, I mean, like they're magnets at this point. Like I have magnets on my car, and they just preach, like just the gospel, like a few good verses on one side of the car or just on the back. So, and they just preach, and even when you're not there, they're preaching 24/7. Anybody that passes by can see it. And I never really got I only got an angry note like once or twice. Like I think 2 times someone like wrote an angry note. Most people just ignore it. Like the stuff I have on my car can really annoy people, because it's the gospel, and some people get really offended. But I've only had an angry note 2 times, and it wasn't anything that bad. Like some people have told me they've had like people leave angry notes like with swear words and cuss words and all that. I didn't really have any of that. It was just like people trying to be sarcastic or trying to be cool, with what they write, trying to be like funny. They weren't really funny, or just someone being annoyed. I think one of them sounded like, one of them was definitely a girl, just because you could tell just by what she wrote. Like it was very, very verbose. And it just kind of like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with this kind of stuff. It was that kind of politically correct, woke kind of an attitude towards the gospel. So yeah, I mean, and that's it. Just like 2 times, because that's it for like I've had them on there for years, and only like 2 times did someone leave a note, because people are numb at this point. Like even if I leave angry Bible verses like with like hellfire, damnation preaching, most people, like even if they get kind of annoyed, they'll just kind of go by. Like I don't think, like even now, I don't think it's just getting that much of a reaction. But on the other hand, some people have noticed it, and it's done good. Like I don't know, I'll find out in heaven what those Bible verse stickers did. You should always find some way to preach, some way to witness. But just saying, like, that's very counterculture. Like putting Bible verses on your car and preaching to people, that's going to annoy people. Like I said, it's going to annoy people. I mean, obviously, like I said, only 2 people left angry notes, but it is going to annoy people. Some people are going to ignore it, just pass by, whatever. But like Ezekiel, he's that kind of a person. He would do stuff that would annoy people. He's asked to preach stuff that's going to make people mad. And so he was called of God to do that. That's very different. He's not preaching some nice gospel. He's going to be preaching about, like, hey, get right, or God will smite you. Like that's going to be Ezekiel's whole entire message here. He's not saying anything nice. He's going to be saying some pretty harsh stuff, and it's not the kind of preaching you're going to be told, to do. Very different from the modern church. So they're just not going to get it. They're not going to get the message. And he's preaching to the house of Israel. He's not even preaching to, like, the lost people here. He's preaching to people that should know the Tanakh, that should know the Old Testament law. God's own people are not listening. Christians are not listening these days. They're not listening to the Bible. The stuff I'm preaching here, some Christians, I think a lot of Christians, are just not going to understand. They're not going to understand what I'm preaching is actually the Bible. And whatever they've been hearing in church are just traditions of men. It's not the Bible. Political correctness is not in the Bible. Like Second Amendment rights, that unfortunately, like for some of you, maybe some of you don't understand, that's also not in the Bible. Your Second Amendment rights are not in the Bible. All of that. There's plenty of things that aren't in the Bible. Some things are nice. It's nice to have certain rights, right? Like I know a lot of people that like to have their Second Amendment rights, but it's actually not a biblically protected right. The Bible doesn't say anything. The Bible does not say you deserve that right. So just something to think about, I think there's plenty of things I can say. Some people forget that you're a Christian first and you're an American second, or whatever country you're from. It's usually a problem in America, this like ardent patriotism, which is, patriotism is fine to an extent, but you're a Christian first. God is your God. The Constitution is not your God. This country is not your God. Your God is the God of the Bible. That's your God. If you're a Christian, that should be your God. There should nothing should be above that. This country, it should not be made into an idol above that. Voting and the election and the president should not be above that. Number one is God. That is your allegiance. Your loyalty is to God. And that has been forgotten in this country, definitely. Your loyalty is to God. Everything else is under that. And as long as that, whatever, and those allegiances should not contradict that, the allegiance should not be higher than your allegiance to God. So you can have loyalty to other things as long as it does not cause you to be disloyal to God, the God of the Bible, the God of everything, the God who made everything. So anyway, I went off on a huge tangent there. But anyway, yeah, so you are going to be a nuisance to society. You're going to annoy people. So the house of Israel are impudent and hard-hearted. That's the kind of people you're going to be dealing with. Hard-hearted, impudent people that just do not want to listen. And if you are going to be out there witnessing and preaching to people, that is what you're going to run into. You're going to run into impudent, hard-hearted people that do not want to hear the gospel. And if you keep at it, eventually you'll run into someone that actually wants to hear it. So that should be your prayer. God, send me to people that actually want to hear the gospel. Because you're going to run into so many people that just don't care. They're numb. They're like numb to the gospel. They just don't care. So much nihilism, existential dread, just so much of that. People are just like dead inside spiritually. They just don't feel. I can't even say they feel negative or positive emotions at this point. So many people are just like on some kind of nihilistic purgatorial state. Their emotions are like in nothingness at this point. There's so many people like that. like they don't even know what to think or believe or feel anymore, because they've just been inundated with knowledge and information since their birth, just everywhere. Just the dopamine levels in the brain are just like out of whack completely. People are just staring at their phone all the time. That's it. You're dealing with a whacked out psychotic generation. That is what society has come to. It's this. Whereas 50, 60 years ago, it was very, very different. So you're dealing with the psychotic generation, but even in these dark times, the gospel can still be heard, and you should still try, still witness to these people, despite having this mass psychosis and lunacy everywhere. I don't even have to go into details. You probably know enough details to know that what I'm saying is true. It's kind of hard to argue against that at this point. So, yeah, that's what you're going to be dealing with. So I think I'm going to end this video here. That was my first point, is that Ezekiel is a nuisance to society, and if you're doing right, you're going to annoy some people. I'm not saying annoy people on purpose. Do not annoy people on purpose. But if you do what God tells you to do, you will periodically annoy people. You will not fit in with everybody. Not everybody will like you if you are doing what God told you to do. If everybody likes you and you don't never offend people, then you're probably not doing something God's telling you to do. You're probably leaving out the entire counsel of God. If you relay the whole counsel of God like God tells you to, some people will not be happy. The lost world will not be happy. You will even annoy other Christians, because not all Christians understand the Bible or what God told them to do. They don't understand the God of the Bible. They don't understand what kind of God He is. They have been, nurtured on wokeness their whole lives, so they have absolutely no clue what the God of the Bible wants. And even if they do magically get saved, they'll probably end up in some giant liberal megachurch and still not understand the God of the Bible. So anyway, that's what this channel is about. It's to educate people. And everything I say, you can check it, right? You don't have to necessarily believe me. You can read the Bible. You can study these things. I'm just telling you information, and it's up to you to verify if it's true. I know it's true. Otherwise, I wouldn't be saying it. But I'm not saying you have to always believe everything I say. You can check it yourself. You can study it yourself, and you'll find out it's true. And if I'm wrong, you can let me know I'm wrong. My foundation is the Bible, so that's why I'm pretty confident in the stuff I say. So anyway, I'll see you next time, and I'm going to continue this study on Ezekiel.